Hey everyone, and welcome to the Hazy Sports Podcast. We've got week one of the NHL playoff action in the books, and man, what a week it's been. Charlie, I feel like I've been drinking out of a fire hose trying to consume all this action, all these games. It's been a week, but honestly, it kind of feels like I've watched a month worth of hockey in the last 7 days. How are you enjoying the ride so far?
It's been incredible. Something happens the Edmonton game the other night where it's just absolute chaos. Third period, probably one of the craziest periods of hockey I've seen. And you think, okay, well, I'll just ease into tomorrow's games. And then you just get an absolute gong show the next night, too. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I've been loving the ride, and we've got lots to get into. We're going to break down each series along the way. We've got our weekly hazing segment that we're bringing back. But I think one of the things I've enjoyed the most about watching the playoffs so far is getting a chance to watch some of these teams and players that you don't watch on a regular basis. Like, I can't say I watched that many LA Kings games from start to finish during the regular seasons. Watching them against the Oilers and seeing their depth and just getting an appreciation for some of those players. And it's been like that kind of across the board. So it's cool in these 7 game series to really get a close look for some of these guys that you just see on the highlights.
And just the ramped up intensity. It's no wonder this is the hardest trophy to win because there can't be a more distinct difference between regular season and playoffs in any other sport like this one. There is no space out there. And if you're not moving the puck within a couple seconds, you're getting steamrolled.
The Jets Blues series in particular, that from the first game, the hits and the intensity, and you think, geez, just surviving this first round series would be an accomplishment, and then you got 3 more to go. So yeah, it's quite a journey on the road to the Cup. Each series is kind of developing its own storylines, feels like its own little movie almost within the playoff narrative, and that's what's kind of great as the bad blood builds amongst the teams, new storylines emerge, and you get quite the drama on all 8 series kind of delivering so far.
Yeah, it's like you watch it, and now I'm just wondering, last year, obviously Edmonton, Florida going 7 games, and what do you got left at that point other than just the absolute will to try and win this thing? I don't know. There's guys got to be so banged up, and we're not even 2 weeks into this yet.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. Let's jump into the series, talk about what stood out to us. We'll start in the East. The Battle of Ontario hadn't been as much of a battle as maybe we expected early on, with the Leafs taking the first 3, but Ottawa came back last night, won in overtime to keep the series alive. What are your initial thoughts on this series so far?
So after the first game, I thought, okay, this is going to be, quick, like we predicted in our series breakdown. But when you start looking at the numbers of this, is it possible that this is, well, it was almost a sweep, but I'm like, is this the most difficult sweep? I broke down the numbers. So the scoring chances going into last night, Ottawa was leading. The high danger chances, Ottawa was leading. Shots from the slot, Ottawa was leading. Shots within the inner slot, so, right around the goal mouth, that's the one the Leafs were actually ahead in. But odd man rushes, Ottawa was ahead, and expected goals, Ottawa was actually ahead too. So they, a couple breaks here. Maybe this is 3-1 the other way. But I don't know. It's been closer than it looks, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously 3 games in a row go into overtime, but it's interesting when you're breaking down those stats, because from the eyeball test, I'm watching these games and kind of feeling like the Leafs have been in control the whole time. Even in those close games, I thought it never really felt like the Leafs were panicking. You never really got the sense that they were in too much trouble, even when the score was close. So that's kind of been my observation. So I'm almost, surprised to hear you break down those stats, because visually it feels like Toronto's been controlling the play. Obviously, that power play just firing on all cylinders, getting balanced contributions from all their big guns and their secondary guns as well. And probably most importantly, just the poise. Like right from game one, every time Ottawa has come back and put the Leafs under pressure, Where previous years they would sort of crack and you would just feel the momentum shift. They never seem to panic, and I think it's a reflection of the coaching probably really setting the tone there.
100%. And I think it's confidence in their goalie, right? Like he's been an absolute rock. So he's not letting in the shitty goal, that a Frederick Anderson or whoever in the past. And like going back to those numbers too, I think Ottawa's got to work a lot harder to create chances where the Leafs kind of make it look a lot easier. And maybe that's why those numbers are so surprising. But I don't know if Stolars keeps playing like this. Obviously, they're not going to lose four straight. But wouldn't this be the ultimate Leaf fan gut shot if they somehow? It would just like there would be people would be leaving that team behind. I think.
Yeah, this would pretty much top them all in terms of collapses. Speaking of Stolars, obviously he's played great, but one thing that surprised me is when you talk about the Leafs and in the past they've had a bit of a lack of that physical presence and toughness. It's amazing to see when you have a big physical goalie like that it almost reverberates out to the team. Like we saw him put a couple pretty good two-handers on Riley and then just take him right out in the crease. And I just thought that was a pretty important moment in just setting the tone. And it's weird how a big physical goalie like that can almost infuse confidence with the rest of the team, even though he's not out there hitting guys out in the open ice.
Well, and you're definitely going to think twice about going in there. And on the reverse, the Leafs have scored 3 or 4 goals within a foot of Ullmark. Like nobody's afraid to go into that blue paint and they're not worried about getting hit. And also, how the hell did Riley get a penalty on that when Stolars just beat the shit out of him for about 30 seconds and somehow he ends up in the box?
Yeah, some questionable calls throughout that series and beyond, but definitely, a tough job from a ref standpoint in terms of just the cross-checking, the physicality, trying to balance things out. Not quite the intensity maybe that I expected compared to some of the other series I've been watching.
I think that's a reflection of the coach too. You got to contain it, right? Like I think part of the reason Ottawa lost that first game is because they were trying to overdo it on the physical side, and that it takes stupid penalties. All of a sudden, you're down 2-0.
Yeah, and the other debate we had going into the playoffs was the Brady Kachuk Matthews debate on in terms of who you would rather have as a captain leading you into the playoffs, and we were kind of leaning Brady, or at least making there's a compelling case to make for him. But I've been totally impressed with Matthews all around game, and a little underwhelmed by Kachuk in this series. I think he's a little banged up, so maybe that's playing into it. But he just hasn't been that menace, that presence like we saw at Four Nations.
Yeah, Matthews is playing both ends like perfectly, and that's what you need to start doing. And I think Brady is probably a little injured. He was a little more physical last night and obviously was more into it, but it's still a good argument, I think.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out now that the Leafs have a little bit of pressure. We'll see how they respond. We're back in Toronto for the next one. Okay, well, let's keep it in the East. We'll go from the Battle of Ontario to the Battle of Florida. This one took a little while getting started with some weird scheduling. I think they're playing their first game after Toronto had played two, but we're off and running now.
Yeah, I kind of laughed like you watch the US broadcasts and they kept hyping it up as the best rivalry in hockey, and I was like, come on. Like I get what they're trying to do, but now that I've watched it, I'm like, man, these teams absolutely hate each other.
Yeah, we definitely have some bad blood here. We've got, Florida coming out and winning two on the road, and then Tampa fires back yesterday, winning one on the road as well. So they say the series doesn't start until you win one on the road, but in this case, I guess it doesn't start until somebody wins one at home.
Yeah, those, and you're getting crazy hits. You got the Hagel hit, and then the Kachuk hit yesterday was, I guess, retribution. But man, those are dirty
Oh
plays.
man, yeah. The way Getzel kind of smashed his face off the ice after that hit. I think we've got an absolute war on our hands. Just has 7 games written all over it, and whoever comes out is, man, going to be battered and bruised heading into round two.
They were really hyping up that line with, Kachuk, Marchand, and Bennett. I don't know that they played a whole lot together yesterday, but any of those scrums, like there was two plays yesterday where even I was like, oh, you piece of shit. Like there was one, Kucherov was tied up with somebody along the boards. The whistle goes, and Matthew Kachuk cross-checked him just above the hip. And that's such a, you got nothing there. I just thought that was such a dirty play. And then one in front of the net, Marchand cross-checked somebody in the arm so hard his stick broke. Like it's just cheap shit, but it's what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah, it's their game, and it tends to be effective in the playoffs. And I was impressed with Kachuk coming back after all that time off injury, and he scored a beauty goal in that first game. It's just the combination of what a instigator he is with the physical play, but also having great hands, being able to score, having great vision. He's kind of got it all. Obviously, one of those guys that everybody hates when you're not playing with them, but a huge part of the team when you're making a cup run like this. It's funny, we talked about Toronto and Marner there a little bit, and Kachuk, and going back to thinking those guys both playing for the Knights, and you remember going to watch them, and you really don't appreciate it at the time that you're probably watching who will be two of the top 10 NHL players in a few years. So it's just funny how you never know. But little trivia question for you there. Neither of those guys were the leading scorer on the Knights that year. Do you know who was? Marner was second and Kachuk was third.
Well, that's a good question. I can't think of it off the top of my head, and we probably don't have time for dead air for me to say.
Christian Dvorak was actually
Okay.
led that team in scoring, and your boy Bouchard was on defense there. So that was another pretty loaded Knights team.
Was Stolars there that time too?
I
Because
think
he's the one.
so. Yeah,
Jeez. That Knights are just an NHL factory.
and a young Robert Thomas was on that team, although I don't think he played a ton of games at that point. But yeah,
He
they're
was
they're pumping
still
out some.
touring. He was still touring with Matchbox 20.
Exactly. Yeah, he hadn't committed to the hockey career. But yeah, so Florida, Tampa, we're gonna see. I don't know. Is there any word whether Kachuk's gonna get a suspension for that hit?
They haven't said anything yet, but I mean, if you're going to suspend one guy, you kind of got to suspend the other guy. But one big thing yesterday is that those penalties that Florida was taking, I think they kind of got Tampa Bay's power play back on track, which had been an offer until yesterday. So we'll see if that gets them rolling, because that's a pretty potent offense when they're clicking.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch. So let's switch gears, head over to Washington, Montreal. The series started in a fairly predictable fashion with the conference leading Capitals winning the first two games. They were close, but Montreal played hard, kind of looked like showed their inexperience a little bit, but you could just kind of sense them building more confidence with each game. Then we queue up game three. We're back to the Bell Center. The arena's just going absolutely nuts. We got fights on the bench. The Canadians win a big one. We're back in it. Do you feel like they've swung the momentum back in their favor?
So this is something that I noticed last year, and this is what separates good coaches. So after game one, I was thinking, okay, they're going to get dominated here on the physical side. So they got to figure something out, how to, either move the puck quicker or zone entries or whatever you want to call it. And by game three, you could see that the Montreal Canadiens had made enough adjustments now that they're getting zone time and they're getting possession in Washington's end. And even players like in game one, Demidov looked like he was out of his element completely. Like he was getting hit. He realized he didn't have the time. And then in the third game, he was back to, that debut game against Chicago. He's making plays. And I tip my cap to the Montreal coaching staff, because I think they've really figured some things out here. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win this series now.
I wouldn't be surprised either. But anything else you want to touch on with Montreal, Washington before we jump to the next series?
It's going to be interesting now because both starting goalies may be out, right? Like Thompson got rolled over, and then Montembeault had the I don't know if it was a knee or something. So that could be a series changer too.
Okay, well, rounding out the Eastern Conference here, we have Carolina, New Jersey, the much maligned series that even the networks don't seem to care much for. They keep broadcasting these games at the most random time. 6 o'clock in the evening, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're kind of squeezing them in, but another one, home team has held court here every game. Carolina took the first two pretty easily, looking good. I have to admit that Carolina home crowd, the Caniacs, it does look like quite a home crowd atmosphere. Carolina deep, playing that solid man-to-man hockey. Stankoven, just a beast here in the playoffs. What was considered almost a consolation prize to not getting Rantanen. Almost looks like the more valuable playoff performer out of those two guys. What's your thoughts on this series so far?
This series should be sponsored by Benjamin Moore Paint because it's literally like watching paint dry. I can't get into this at all. I put it on. I'm happy for Stankoven and how well he's playing, but I don't have many notes for this other than I it's just not my style of hockey that I enjoy.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I was trying to, I was reaching a bit to try to hype up that Stankoven and the Caniacs. That was me trying to come up with something interesting to talk about this series.
You know what the ironic part is? We put out all those clips for sort of previewing the series, and for some reason, this series little clip got the most plays, which I don't know if because we were making fun of it or what, but kind of interesting.
Yeah, kind of counterintuitive. I would say what was actually the most entertaining part of this series is when Markstrom accidentally slashed his own guy in the nuts. Cody Glass with a nice goalie stick right in the nuts actually got him so good that he was out for the game with that one. But he was trying to slash Stankoven in front of the net. Cody Glass just cruises through the crease at the wrong time, gets some friendly fire, and I thought
Catching
that's
strays.
yeah. Yeah, that's just a microcosm, I guess, of how the first two games went for Devils fans. It just felt like a goalie stick in the nuts after those first two. But
That'll be on the season end highlight package. That's a good way to sum up the year.
exactly. So we won't spend any more time on that series. It is 2-1. But yeah, I don't expect Carolina to have too much trouble finishing that out over the next couple games. Okay, we're heading to the Western Conference here. We got the Winnipeg Jets, St. Louis Blues. Like I mentioned in the intro there, a bunch of big boys just banging the shit out of each other. I realized as I was saying that sounds a little odd, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, like this is gonna be whoever can come out of this alive. Like that last game in Winnipeg, it was just massive hit after massive hit. Jeff and Rita Shen just ear to ear grins in the stands. Just incredible. Like, and so I kind of made a joke about the Hellebuck in one of our little videos about the glove side, but in that 7-2 game, he got beat again 4 times high glove side.
Yeah, there could be something there. Maybe it's in his head. Maybe the Blues are onto something. There certainly seem to be targeting that 7-2 victory. All of a sudden turns the tide, and another series where the home team hasn't lost. But I got to give props to the Winnipeg fans. That whiteout at home is one of the cooler things in hockey to watch, and what an atmosphere! It just the intensity of those first two games were crazy. But St. Louis kept it close in both those games, and we kind of had them as a live dog and a potential upset there. And they're still down 2-1, but they've been looking good.
They've been looking good. It could easily be 3-0 St. Louis. I read a stat too in the first two games that St. Louis wasn't able to hit Scheifele at all. Like I think he got hit once in the first two games. And in that 7-2 game, he was hit 7 or 8 times and hit hard too. And going back to the whiteout, I believe that's the smallest NHL arena too. So it must be even more intense when you're on the ice and the fans are literally like right on top of you. So I agree. It's one of the best traditions in hockey.
So maybe an early favorite for the series of the first round. But yeah, man, that's been intense. Your boy Snuggerud from Minnesota bumped up to the top line. That's been pretty cool to see, just to be able to go from wrapping up your college hockey career onto a team that sneaks into the playoffs. Now you're bumped up on the first line, playing a significant role. Pretty cool story there.
It's Snuggie season. This is amazing. Like this is why people should be watching NCAA hockey because this guy steps right in and now he's playing, minutes with the top line. And we'll get to it, but in Minnesota, another guy that Buyam, he's 19 years old. Yesterday he was on the first power play. Like it's amazing. I love to see it.
Let's switch it up here. We're going to go to Colorado, Dallas. This series has kind of gone according to script. We've got a 2-2 series. We've got two games that have went into overtime. This has, some 7-game battle written all over it. But probably the biggest storyline in this series is the captain, Landeskog, coming back, starts game 3. Stars ruin his home ice debut with an overtime win, but then he comes back and scores first goal since raising the cup and does it in front of the home crowd. Uh, Colorado gets the win. Pretty nice storyline to watch there.
Yeah, you get all the teams screwing around with the LTIR stuff and guys are amazingly healthy at the start of the playoffs, but this is the one guy that I'll give the exception to. Like there was question whether or not he was even ever going to come back. So to see him out there and then to score last night, it's just an awesome, awesome story. And hopefully he can continue to build on that. My question to you on the Dallas side, like, are we sure Ottinger's any good? Because I know he's stolen a couple of games in this series, but he seems to let in some pretty soft goals, and that's coming from a guy who cheers for a team with Stuart Skinner.
Yeah, you're no stranger to a soft goal here, and we'll talk about that more in the next matchup. Good question. I can't really give a strong verdict there. I know he got pulled there for the third period and in last night's game. I don't know. What do you think? Where do you
I mean,
land on that?
obviously they're missing their best defenseman, and that would make a huge difference. But you watch some of these other games, like Allmark last night probably had 5 or 6 just holy shit saves, and it seems like that's been the case. Like I know Montembeault before he got hurt had a couple insane saves. And it feels like he's kind of letting in ones he should have. And I mean, Colorado's offensively insane too, but I'm just not sold on him. And maybe that's going to be their downfall.
Yeah, they're obviously going to need him to play huge to pull off this series. But Rantanen seems to be struggling early against his former team.
It's got to be weird too, going from playing with McKinnon to now you're saddling up with Rupe Hintz or Matt Duchene. There's a clear drop off there. But I mean, if you're going to command 8 years and 14 million a year, you got to produce, right? Like you got to kind of put the feelings aside and step up if you're going to be the guy. So
Absolutely. Well, you touched on McKinnon. There's not a lot more we can say about him. Continues to impress, and seeing it in the playoffs, he takes it up another level. Great getting to appreciate a guy like that in his prime right now.
yeah, I don't get to watch too many of their games. So all these earlier start playoff games, it's just those guys are a joy to watch. If you haven't watched Colorado, make sure you do.
Well, let's shift it over to the West Coast here. We got a series kickoff in LA against the Oilers. For somebody like me that doesn't really have any skin in the game, it's been one of the most entertaining series. For an Oilers fan like yourself, though, the last 3 games have to have felt like quite an emotional roller coaster.
The first game was an absolute disaster. Like I love Evan Bouchard, but he can go from being, the best offensive player on the ice at times to just looks like he's never played an NHL game in the next shift. And it's so frustrating to watch. But take nothing away from the Kings like that. I'm surprised more teams don't do this, but they've used this 5 forward power play, and man, like they're just snapping it around. And if you're not aggressive, they're putting it in the net like within seconds.
I've been so impressed with watching them, and like I said, they're on the West Coast, late games during the regular season, not staying up for a ton of those. Just getting an appreciation for the way they all play together, the depth. Guys like Kempe, Kuzmenko. I feel having a coming out party. Like obviously he's number 2 pick. It's not like total sleeper that this guy's good, but he's kind of feels like he's been doing a slow bake from a development standpoint, and now we're kind of seeing his full potential with him.
Yeah, he's like the perfect combo of size, skill, and speed. And he's just given them, well, I should say he's not giving them problems. They're just giving him so much open space that he's got no option but to score. But yeah, the Kings, like, I was actually a little concerned that this was the year they're going to pass Edmonton. But after that third game, I think they kind of got some stuff figured out, and Evander Kane, for not playing for an entire year, looked like he might be sort of back into form too. So I don't think this series is over just yet, but they gotta get rid of the friggin' beer league defense, that's for sure.
And get more even contributions from the team. The amount of responsibility that they're putting on McDavid and Draisaitl to carry them. Like they put McDavid on the penalty kill, which not a bad idea. Like obviously he's going to be a good, good penalty killer, but you've got him on every power play. Now you got him on the penalty kill. You've got him just carrying the team on his back through chunks of the game. Like what's left, throw the pads on him for a period and put him between the pipes.
Well, and this is why they were so good last year, is because Janmark and Connor Brown and these other guys were doing so well on the penalty kill that there's his time, to catch a minute and a half of breather time. And this year, it's just not working, and you can't expect anything more from these guys. Like, you're exactly right. Someone else is going to have to start contributing elsewhere, or it's going to be a quick season.
But on that note, we do need to take a moment to acknowledge what he did in the third period of the first game. Like that, it was a disaster for the Oilers, most of the game, but it was funny because I had watched game 1 of the Avs Stars and saw McDavid McKinnon going beast mode. I keep going back and forth, but in my head I'm like, maybe McKinnon is the guy out of all the guys in the league that you want leading your team into the playoffs, just with that combination of tenacity and a little bit more physical and the speed. So sure enough, the next day, McDavid's like, why don't you suck on this T-bone? I'm going to go here and show you how I can basically dominate a whole game, bring my team back from 4 goals single-handedly. That's probably one of the best performances in a losing cause I've ever seen.
And then to your point about what more can they do, like they bring him all the way back, and then Knoblauch leaves those guys on the ice after basically playing the entire third period, and obviously they get burned by Philip Deneau on that goal with 40 seconds left, which was just crushing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like that's got to be one of the most dominant performances in a losing.
Another thing on that game I wanted to run past you, and you kind of mentioned it, something similar with the cut to the Shen family in the Winnipeg game. In that first game in LA, do we really need 57 reaction shots from Will Ferrell? Like they literally went to him after every goal, and it's not like he's telling jokes there. He's just Will Ferrell wearing a Kings hat and jacket. It's funny. They latch on to somebody in the crowd, and the camera guys just fall in love with their reactions.
And at least Jeff and Rita Shen have some emotional connection. He's just a guy who happens to have tickets. Obviously, he's a celebrity. But I'm with you. Who gives a shit?
Well, let's finish it off here. We got Vegas, Minnesota. Another weird one in the scheduling department. We have some of these games starting at 11 o'clock Eastern. Charlie, are you staying up till 2:30 to watch Vegas, Minnesota?
I'm just thinking, like, I saw it was 11, right? So right off the hop, puck drops probably not till 11:15, 11:20. So even if you're on the West Coast, who's staying up that late to watch these games? And if you're a kid, you're totally screwed. You can't watch that. If you're a kid who's it's a obviously weeknight, so you got school. And I just don't get how they don't want people to see their stars. Like even a game like Friday night or tonight for Edmonton, why is it 9:30 and 10 o'clock at night? Just bump it up.
Especially on a Sunday when everybody's off, you could be, finding a time that works for all time zones.
Yeah, the timing makes no sense to me. But I didn't get to see either of the games in Vegas because I have a full-time job. But I did get a chance to watch the game yesterday. And I gotta say, like, for not watching any Minnesota Wild hockey, they are a fun team to watch.
I've been surprised by that too. I've been watching the Sportsnet has the NHL in 30 recaps, but Kirill Kaprizov, talk about guys that you don't get an appreciation from. He was, injured for a good chunk of the year, and he's playing in Minnesota where you're not watching a ton of regular season games. Obviously, we know from a stats perspective the way he delivers, but seeing the impact that he has on the game has been impressive. So much like Byfield, he's been another guy where I've just kind of really enjoyed watching him play, even just in those recap games. And we got to talk about that saucer pass. That was a thing of beauty, kind of reminiscent of that Erik Karlsson pass when he played with Ottawa.
It definitely doesn't top the Carlson one, but if you're watching that, he gets the puck and he's kind of shifting to the left. And it's like a split second. He just puts his eyes up and sees, I can't remember who it was, Boldy maybe. And within seconds, he's just floating it, and it goes over two lines and drops just before the Vegas blue line, right on the stick. And obviously, Boldy finishes it. And like that's got to be the goal of the playoffs so far. Like, just sick.
Yeah, that was sweet. So Vegas won the first game. Minnesota comes back, wins two games in a row, and then Vegas evened it up in overtime yesterday afternoon. So we got a pretty even series there. I also want to touch on Zeev Buyum. I feel like I've heard his last name pronounced multiple different ways, but I'm going to go with Buyum. Some of the other college guys like Leonard and Snuggerud had a chance to get a little regular season experience before they got thrown in. Williams' first NHL game was game one against Vegas. Talk about getting thrown into the fire as a 19-year-old.
Yeah, no kidding. And even yesterday, he played 13 minutes. He's a +2 so far in the playoffs. He's getting power play 1 unit work. Like, it's amazing just to see these guys take this jump. And like you said, how do you go from NCAA to now you're playing in Las Vegas in front of an insane crowd with the intensity just ramped up through the roof? It's incredible stuff.
Yeah, so that series is kind of growing on me. I had it sort of as the Devils Canes of the West, but I'm actually a lot more intrigued with it. So that's going to be a fun one to follow. Wow, so that covers all 8 series. That's just 1 week. We've got a hell of a ride in store for us, so it's going to be fun checking in on that. Looks like we're avoiding any sweeps for the first time in the first round in a while. So, yeah, I've been impressed just at the competitiveness and back and forth of most of these series. Going to be a fun ride. Good. So let's kick things off. We're bringing back the weekly hazing.
Wave it off. Fuck, let's go. Fucking wave that stick at me again. You're gonna fucking eat it. Darren fucking Pete. You want to get knocked out again? We got a guy for you.
Let's start in Vancouver. What's going on with the Canucks here? The bottom just seems to be falling out there ever since that JT Miller trade. Probably getting rid of the wrong guy there. Or they're not picking up the option on Tocchet. Sounds like he's going to leave. We got Quinn Hughes saying he wants to play with his brothers. Things seem to be going from bad to worse from what was a pretty competitive Canucks team not too long ago.
Just an absolutely bizarre press conference by their GM too. Like, who comes out and you know what? Maybe he's thinking he can get the other Hughes brothers to Vancouver, but to come right out and say, it's going to be difficult to bring back, I would say, top 3 defensemen in the NHL, and to almost be waving a white flag like we're losing this guy. I've never seen anything like that before.
When he said we'd like to have him back, but it's really up to him whether he comes back or not, I'm like, yeah, this is the guy that just won the Norris Trophy. He's your captain.
Well, and even mentioning that now, you've just lost leverage in any sort of trade, right? Because now well, no, this guy wants to come here. Well, and I'm not really sure New Jersey has the assets to even get him anyways. Like, it was just bizarre. I've never seen a GM basically just kind of give up.
If you're a free agent looking at Vancouver, that just screams like a situation that probably you don't want to go to. You got Tocchet, who is Jack Adams Award winner last year, shopping around for different options. He doesn't even want to stay. What's going on there?
If I'm him, I'm going right here with this guy.
Oh, we got Gritty.
He's a Flyers legend, and just before we came on here, I'm like, well, let's see what the Flyers have in the tank as far as prospects. So this is the Flyers prospect list and young guys that they have currently. So you got Jet Luchenko coming, Denver Barkey, Oliver Bonk, you got Michkov already there, you got Alex Bump, you got Bobby Brink. And then you got a goalie who they're saying is the best European goalie prospect in Alexei Kolosov. Add that, you got Travis Sanheim, Konechny, and Jamie Drysdale, plus the 4th pick overall this year. If I'm Tocchet, I'm taking the first flight to Philly right now.
Wow, well, that's a pretty impressive rundown there. It's actually making me a little nervous. I'm trying to get my wings into the playoffs, and now probably got Philly taken up one of those spots. But I agree, it's strange to me because Vancouver is such a beautiful city. You would think that would be a pretty attractive destination, but people can't seem to get out of there fast enough. Philly seems like a great fit for Tocchet, and yeah, what a crop of prospects there. And like the 4th overall pick in this year's draft should be
another
future's
right?
bright in Philly, yeah.
And just one more thing about Vancouver, they were the 2 seed in the West last year. Like, just completely fall apart.
I wouldn't feel good if I was a Vancouver Canucks fan right now. I would just feel like the arrow is really pointing in the wrong direction. Well, speaking of teams that are kind of pointing in the wrong direction, the Wings here, they had sort of those clean out the locker interviews, and the captain, Dylan Larkin, kind of put Stevie Y on blast, calling him out for not making any moves at the trade deadline. Felt like kind of a peculiar thing for your captain to get up and say at this point of the year. The Wings weren't even in a playoff spot when the trade deadline rolled around, so you can kind of see it from Stevie Y's perspective of, are you going to make some, moves when there wasn't a ton of great free agents out there to begin with. You're not even in a playoff spot. So it's not like they were 1 or 2 pieces away. At the same time, they had a ton of cap space. You're only paying a prorated amount for a rental. Could have infused the team with a bit of a second win and some inspiration to get them into the playoffs. And I feel like just getting into the playoffs would have felt like a step in the right direction and a nice building block going on into next year versus going into the off season with a real deflated, defeated feeling. What are your thoughts on that one, Charlie?
Well, I'm taking Larkin's side because we talked about this before, that it hasn't seemed more wide open than this year as far as the playoffs go. And maybe 1 or 2 guys brought in helps shift, that stretch run where they could have got in. But not only that, it's not a great free agent class coming up this year either. So unless you have a plan, to offer sheet a guy like Nyes or something like that, you maybe miss an opportunity to get somebody into the building. And why not go for it? These guys, you have such a small window now. If you have a chance to get in, as we're seeing, with Montreal and Minnesota, and just get that extra hype for the team. I'm on Larkin's side with this.
And to follow up on that, I think what we're seeing with Montreal, whether they make it to the second round or not this year, the playoff experience that they're getting right now is going to pay dividends for next year. It's going to be huge just for some of those young guys to just get that experience playing in that intense environment. They can build on that. So, yeah, I kind of felt like the same way. Detroit hasn't been there in a while. Even if they could have just got into the first round and got some of that playoff experience, they could have really built on that. I guess we'll see if it motivates Stevie to do anything here in the offseason. But interesting couple storylines to follow there for some of the teams that didn't make it into the playoffs. So the other topic I wanted to chat with you about is the Sportsnet panel. During the regular season, I tend to just not watch these. I get a little irritated with it and find it boring. But during the playoffs, the stakes are raised. I'm kind of interested to hear what they say. I think BX is great. I like Rudy as well. But I can't figure out bringing on Derek Lalonde move for the playoffs. So we're saying, okay, let's take the most exciting time of the year and then bring on a guy that brings the energy down by 70 to 80% with his monotone breakdowns of 50-50 battles and then take airtime away from the guys that are actually adding some interesting, colorful content.
I can't decide. Anytime he's on, I can't decide if he looks more like Dr. Evil or he looks more like Gru from Despicable Me. Like, it's just unbelievable. You got probably the biggest personality in hockey in John Tortorella sitting somewhere at home, and this monotone, maybe 65 beats per minute heartbeat guy on the panel to just really amp up the fans in between periods. He adds nothing to this broadcast.
I need to hit myself with the smelling salts to get ready for the next period after listening to him.
And then you flip over to TNT and, as much as Biz Nasty's not maybe the greatest analyst, at least he's adding the humor side of it to everything, right? Like, Lalonde brings nothing to the table.
Yeah, it's a television show. It's meant to be entertaining. And on top of that, can somebody tell Ron MacLean that he doesn't have to make a cringy dad joke at the end of each segment? Like, I'm sorry, Ron, you've lost your fastball here.
Yeah, those end of the segment quotes where he starts referencing weird shit too, that somehow there's a weird parallel to, I don't know, a guy who coached a fucking junior team 35 years ago that was named after somebody that's a defenseman on, like, it's just, all right, Ron, we got it. Shut her down.
Elliot Friedman, I gotta say, has this guy got any sleep since the playoffs started? Watching that Ottawa-Toronto game last night, he's looking rough. I do enjoy his perspective from more of a journalist side of things, and I like the way Bieksa kind of rips on him, and they got that little dynamic. But Christ, he looks like he's been going hard since the playoffs started.
It's hilarious you say that, because we were watching it last night, and my daughter asked, "What's wrong with that guy?"
He's a hard-working guy. I'm gonna hate to see what he looks like when we get to the finals here. Anyways, that wraps up our weekly hazing. Let's close things out. We've got some shout-outs that we want to do. We've been keeping an eye on the CHL playoffs, and always seem to have something we touch on with Gavin McKenna, but he's got a point streak of 51 games right now. Yeah, pretty impressive performances continue to roll from him.
Yeah, they're going to run into a buzzsaw that are the Spokane Chiefs too, probably, and they got the top two scorers in all of the CHL playoffs right now, so that could be some interesting viewing for sure.
Yeah, that'll be fun to watch as we get closer to the Memorial Cup. Another series we're following here is the Rangers and Knights. Rangers coming back from 0-3 to Windsor, crushing defeat for the Spitfires. Quite a gritty performance from the Rangers.
Yeah, and I'm gonna mention the London Knights now, who won Friday and have yet to lose in the playoffs. So can they run the table all the way through the OHL we'll have to find out. But they play again this afternoon, I believe, in London. So
Yeah, that'll be fun to watch. We've got 4 NHL playoff games back to back to back to back, plus the Knights Rangers game in there. Folks, buckle up your seatbelts and enjoy the ride.
I'd usually be watching my Tottenham Hotspur soccer team right now, but with 12 hours of hockey, I kind of got to pick my spots to remain married. So hopefully the Spurs can pull it out today.
Yeah, you might have to catch the highlights just to keep everything in balance in the family life. I know what you mean. And same on that note, normally I'd be really into the NBA playoffs as well with some good series there, but I've kind of had my focus more on the hockey side of things. But I did want to give a final shout out to the Pistons. They're in a tough series against the Knicks, but they got their first playoff win in 17 years. Kind of takes me back to when I lived in Windsor and I was really following the Pistons closely in the mid 2000s. I loved that team with Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Tayshaun Prince. All 5 of those guys made the All-Star team that year. They beat the Lakers. I think it was 05. They beat the Lakers to win it all. So it's been a bit of a cold spell since that era, but nice to see. They've got kind of a fun, scrappy team to watch, and Cade Cunningham seems like the real deal. So just shout out to the Pistons, and we'll see if they can pull it out against the Knicks. And other than that, anything else you wanted to highlight before we wrap up?
No, I'm just ready for another full day of hockey, and who knows what the hell's gonna happen today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We're kind of wrapping this up here around 11:30, so we gotta gear up, get a few refreshments, get some snacks going, and watch the action. And we'll be back with you guys next week for a recap. We'll have some eliminations to talk about and some round 2 previews. So playoffs haven't disappointed yet. Let's keep it rolling, and we'll talk to you soon, Charlie.
Later, buddy.
Okay.